Title: They called her weak in training, so she brutally knocked out 5 Marines. They say the military breaks you before it builds you. But for Elena Ramirez, it didn't just break her body, it tested the very fabric of her soul. From the moment she stepped off the bus and onto the sun-scorched tarmac of Camp Pendleton, Elena knew she was different. Not just because she was one of the few women in her unit. Not just because she was small, barely scraping 5'3" in her boots. But because she carried something heavier than her gear. She carried grief. Her father, Sergeant Luis Ramirez, was a Marine. Tough, disciplined, proud. He had served 2 tours and lived every moment of his life with the integrity of a soldier. Elena idolized him. She still remembered the smell of his uniform, the way his boots echoed in the hallway, and the softness in his eyes when he called her his little warrior. When cancer took him just 10 months before she enlisted, she made a promise at his grave: "I'll make you proud, Dad. I'll wear that uniform. I'll earn it." But boot camp didn't care about your promises. It didn't care about your grief. It only cared about whether you could keep up. Elena wasn't fast. She wasn't strong. On the first day of PT, she finished last in the run. On the obstacle course, she barely managed to pull herself over the wall. Her hands blistered. Her legs ached. Her lungs burned. And while she struggled, others thrived. Corporal Jennings, for example, was the very image of a Marine, tall, broad-shouldered, sharp-jawed, and loud. Always loud. He took one look at Elena and decided she was his new entertainment. "Hey, Snow White," he called out during lunch the second week. "Shouldn't you be back in Disneyland with the other princesses?" The guys laughed. Even some of the girls smirked. Elena didn't respond. She just stared at her tray of mashed potatoes, holding her fork in her trembling hand. But that silence was exactly what Jennings fed on. "You gonna cry now? Gonna write about it in your little journal?" Still, she said nothing. Because Elena knew the moment she fought back with words, she'd lose. Her father taught her that. Let your actions speak for you. You don't owe them noise. You owe yourself victory. But quiet didn't make it easier. Training grew harder. The combat drills more intense. Her body refused to recover fast enough. Each morning she peeled herself from bed like her muscles had turned to stone overnight. Her feet were blistered, her arms raw. During rifle drills, her hands shook. Her accuracy was subpar. Her drill instructor, Staff Sergeant Monroe, pulled her aside one day and said, bluntly, "Ramirez, at this rate, you're not making it through." She nodded, but inside, something cracked. She was trying. Harder than she'd ever tried at anything. And it still wasn't enough. That night, she didn't sleep. Instead, she sat under a flickering hallway light, holding her father's old dog tags, whispering his name like a prayer. "I'm sorry, Dad. I don't know if I can do this." But even as she cried, something inside her began to rise, not like fire, but like stone. Solid. Resolute. She remembered the time she'd fallen from her bike at age 7, scraping her knees raw. Her father had knelt beside her and said, "What hurts today makes you stronger tomorrow." So, Elena made a decision. If she was going to fail, she'd fail fighting. The next morning, while the others rested, she ran extra laps around the field. After lights out, she quietly did push-ups and sit-ups in the dark until her arms went numb. She studied combat manuals when everyone else laughed at memes on their phones. She trained in silence. No complaints. No victories shared. Just sweat. Pain. Grit. The next challenge came quickly, the combat fitness test. It was brutal. Sprints, lifts, maneuver under fire drills. Elena had trained hard, but her body was still catching up. During the final section, carrying a fellow recruit across 50 yards, her knees buckled halfway through. She dropped him. And the laughter came again. Sharper this time. Jennings shouted from the sidelines, "Maybe try carrying your Barbie dolls first, Ramirez." Even the instructors looked disappointed. But she didn't cry this time. She clenched her fists, nodded to herself, and whispered, "Not yet." 3 weeks passed. Then came the hand-to-hand combat week, the week Elena had circled in her mind from day one. This was her shot. They'd be paired in sparring matches, observed for technique, control, and power. Jennings, with his usual swagger, was showing off his form like a UFC champion. "Watch out," he bragged to the group. "I might go easy on Snow White. Wouldn't want to bruise the princess." Elena kept her eyes forward, calm, breathing steady. When the instructor called names, a ripple went through the group. Elena Ramirez versus Corporal Jennings. Gasps. Then laughter. "Oh, this is gonna be quick," Jennings said, already stepping onto the mat. But what no one knew, not Jennings, not even the instructor, was that Elena had grown up with martial arts. Her father had taught her basic defense since she was 10. Not for sport, but for survival. She stepped into the ring. Measured. Silent. Jennings smirked. The whistle blew. He came at her with a lazy jab, mocking. She ducked, pivoted, and in one fluid motion, swept his legs out from under him. He hit the mat with a dull thud. People gasped. He scrambled up, red-faced, swinging harder. But she was faster. A sharp elbow to his ribs. A precise hook to his jaw. A calculated palm strike to his shoulder. Jennings dropped again. Hard. "Enough," the instructor yelled. But it wasn't out of concern for Elena. It was for him. Next. Another Marine stepped forward. Bigger. More careful. But Elena was ready. 2 jabs, 1 kick down. And again. And again. 5 Marines. In 2 minutes. Silence swallowed the room. No more jokes. No more snickers. Even Jennings sat in stunned disbelief, clutching his side. Elena didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She simply stepped off the mat, picked up her gear, and walked off. The next day, people looked at her differently. Not with pity, but with respect. Jennings avoided eye contact. Others began asking her for tips. Some offered apologies. Staff Sergeant Monroe, who once doubted she'd make it, pulled her aside after drill and said with a nod, "That was impressive, Ramirez. Keep it up." But what mattered most came weeks later, at graduation. Elena stood in her dress blues, boots polished to mirror-like shine, medals pinned neatly. Her mother clutched her hand, crying softly. As the names were called, Elena heard hers, Private First Class Elena Ramirez, top of her class in combat readiness. Applause. A few cheers. And then a quiet clap from the back. She turned and saw Staff Sergeant Monroe standing beside Jennings, both applauding. And in her hand, she held her father's dog tags. Later that day, she returned to his grave. The same spot where she once made her promise. She knelt, laid her medals down, and whispered, "They called me weak, Dad. But I'm still standing. I made it. For you. For me." And as the sun set behind her, bathing the cemetery in gold, a breeze lifted the edge of her uniform like a salute from the heavens. Elena had proven what many people still need to hear. Strength isn't measured in muscle. It's measured in moments, the ones when no one is watching, when no one believes in you, when you have nothing left but your will to rise. She wasn't the loudest. She wasn't the strongest. But she was the bravest. And that made her unstoppable. If you felt chills listening to Elena's journey, we want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us, have you ever been underestimated? How did you rise above? Your story might inspire someone else who feels small right now. And if you believe in the power of quiet strength, discipline, and rising above cruelty with courage, make sure you like, subscribe, share, and join our growing community here on Be Kind Always. Because here, we believe that kindness isn't weakness, it's the fiercest strength of all.